welcome back. It's a brand new season of CGL.
This is just an absolute treat. These players are so damn good.
The talent on these teams is undeniable. Everybody on every team right now is making plays.
It's going to be an exciting start to the season, and it'll just get better from here on out.
We're about to step to a whole new era of Overwatch esports. So much exciting action is happening here on CGL that you do not want to miss. Look who's starting it all off, it's Raven. No one necessarily figure out what is the right way to go just yet.
What did I roll through? This is just gonna solidify everything from Mythos.
Does come back, and Arsario gets the mech, but I don't need a mech. I'll kill 4 anyway.
This is just a highlight reel for Arsario right now.
They're making a statement in the EU Masters here.
This patch is still incredibly fresh. There's so much to learn, so much to change about the way we play the game.
SKC, but the shatter is colossal.
Let's get it going.
Raids keep coming through. Lores, you're gonna be able to find these shots true.
Inu on the overclock with 2.
Here comes an athlete immediately to back. That's fine. Skills slicing and dicing their way through 2, 3. So back and forth.
And we are on the verge of Overwatch changing forever. But here in CGL, the teams have a reprieve. The final week of CGL that is perkless. Let's see what these teams can do before the entire meta is shifted onto its head. My name is Gio. I'll be covering today's game alongside Nyah. It'll be the Flock versus Kalmarne, or Kalmarne. I'm going to say Kalmarne because I'm part Italian, and it's like Calzone. This should be an interesting one because both teams have very equal stats right now.
Yeah, and yeah, it's definitely gonna be interesting. Like how you said, me and you actually got to see the Flock play, and they got clipped. Their wings was wingless, but we get to see this. This is actually news, so thank you, Prod. But now we get to see the stats of the players, and looking at it, Fairy and Indra, they both have some interesting stats. Damage per 10, obviously, that goes forward into the Flock. But you look at the assists and deaths. The more deaths coming out of it here, Gio, is the side of Kalmarne. So if Fairy gets picked more out of this, the Flock are going to have more advantages.
Yeah, we've watched the Flock already. We know Indra is a good player. They got like force off of Tracer and Oasis, and I'd say that's the reason why they lost Oasis, if I'm being honest. Indra, a very good player, and it just kind of shows in the difference of the stats here. Both these teams on the standings as well have equal points to every metric that's calculated on the scoreboard. We are equal. So this match between these teams are basically deciding, do I want to be a bottom half team or a top half team? And
Exactly.
now's the time to make your mark and basically play for it, because of course you want to be the top half, you want to make it into the playoffs, because this tier is split into 2. So we're in, like, I think the B side, I don't know how it's referred to as, but you want to get into the playoffs so you can try and get into the mid-season. But today we also have a game later on. The NA match will be at 9 p.m. EST. Add 5 to that if you want to watch it in UK time. That's GMT. Celestial Knights versus Fellowship Esports. Can the Fellowship get the ring to Mordor, or will the Celestial Knights bring down the Wraiths? Check that out later today. But it's all about if the Flock are able to kind of recover from last week's stream where they got 3-0'd by Ecclesi. Technically, Kalmarne have a win against Ecclesi, but looking at the site, it does look like that could have been a bye. So I'm going to give that one an asterisk unless someone gives me any different information.
Yeah, it could also be like a forfeit too, where they didn't get to play each other. But yeah, more points going up in their favor there for Kalmarne. But yeah, as you said, it is pretty equal stance. Both of the teams are going to be looking for a win here, and that's what leads that competition, right? Both 50-50. if we're looking at the Flock, they want to have a win here. This is the second time that they're up on stream throughout the CGL season. And we also get to start up on a great map, which has a Lucio main Gio. I love this map. Ilios, oh, bring it to WoW.
I'm sure Lucio players are wishing they had that 15% boop distance perk right now, but of course they won't have access to it. Yeah, new week, new maps, new us, new you. Ilios, Kings, Runasapi, Junk City, Shambali. These first 3 maps are bangers. I think Well's a bit gimmicky, but Ruins is, you know, it challenges your long-range skills. Obviously, there's lots of different levels on Lighthouse, and that kind of challenges your kind of verticality. Do you go for more of a dive? Do you bunker on point? There's kind of different ways to play it. They're going to play into your style. But talk about style, because teams have been focusing on their style because they can ban out what counters them the most. Do you have any idea what Kalmarne might be banning here at the start?
If I were to say anything, it's a fresh new season. Teams are probably going to rely upon what meta was last season, so they're probably going to go forward with a tank pick here or a DPS. Hazard could still be up in the scene here. I know Ramattra is good here, played with solos, depending, but if you want to target focus a support, or, okay, wait, just take it out of my words, I guess.
Hazard, yeah, Hazard ban. That's fair. You know, Hazard before bans was primarily meta. After bans, we saw a lot of Torb and Sim in terms of the top tier. I do know Kalmarne have a staff member I saw on the system, Mick, who is a very good manager, very good mind for the game. So I'm interested to see what a team of his brings out here in terms of like with their ban choices. But now Flock, they get to make the reversal, and we saw that they were very good at dive, or would prefer that. Or
okay.
Actually, it's the Genji that's gone. Okay, why do you think Genji's the choice here?
I think Genji's actually pretty good with deflux, and you know, it comes up into like the play if you have like a Ana up in the back. So you really don't gotta worry about, you know, the nano blades anymore with a dive composition, which is pretty favorable up on Ilios whenever you won, you know, the Winton. But without the Genji Gio, I expect them to play something more like Poke.
Yes, and we see the team here of Kalmarne, Fairy, Arnie Bjarni, Arnie Benarni, Pele, and Haggist up against the Flock, who, of course, who you remember from last time. We've got Indra, Sky Demon, Fatal Turtle, Seb, and Kai.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic to see what these two teams could do. It's still the introductory of the CGL season, in my opinion. Both of the teams got to go far up into the season to make it their statement here up in this division. But yeah, last week it wasn't a good look for the Flock. They did get 3-0'd, but can this be their chance to signify their selves for a nice look for a stream VOD?
Yes. Well, as we settle in to Lighthouse, you cannot play Genji, you cannot play Hazard, so like you said, maybe a bit more pork style. Pork style? Well, yeah, pork style, Roadhog. See, I meant it was not a slip of the tongue. Whereas Arnie Benarni, the tank, is looking to go a bit more classic here. Lucio Juno, maybe the Juno just for speed here, because it's a low healing backline, but it gives you a lot of speed.
Yeah, and I like Lucio this season, but without the perks up in the CGL week, they gotta wait, right? So he don't give out that 15%, but here we go. Let's see what this Lucio player could do. If they could play around the edges, Gio, I could see this being pretty good, but you look at the Flock, they could just get out of that. The only one that could really boot this guy off the corner.
Yeah, and you know, soft dives there, looking to just kind of prod and poke. They understand that if they can't go too hard in here, because that Brig's going to be very defensive. The Brig Juno, that classic backline, modern classics, I guess you could say. Arnie Bjarni has went down. Indra, very strong tracer. We saw that in the stats, and that's going to be a real strength for the Flock.
Yeah, and the Flock are looking good so far up into this one, getting a fight win up on Lighthouse. And yeah, if you are the side of Cal, you gotta kind of readjust now. You gotta regroup with your team, and now you're finding yourself up in this upper position where you have this bridge area to overtake this Flock side.
And of course, you want to be trying to create that space for yourself. You just can't hard dive in. Swines goes for kind of basically pushing the rest of the team back. It means Arnie Bjarni does need to use that recall early, and they don't get too much from the dive. They've got control of the high ground now, which is going to give Fairy the laydown of the land. But again, that Diva of Swines actually finds Haggis there with the micro missiles. And it's all just went to pot for them. They don't have the healing now to sustain. Yeah, Swines is just really controlling the space here.
Yeah, and Swines does have this Diva Bomb ready to go, but you also look at Indra that has this Pulse Bomb, the position off of like a corner or like an engage plan. So this is looking pretty good for the Flock, but if you're Swines, you're going to be able to get that remech there. I think Swines was trying to look for a bomb, but yeah, the Flock are up in a good position here with their ult economy.
Yeah, the good old-fashioned yeet and bomb didn't find anything, shockingly. It's not 2016. Pele just gets sent into the Phantom Realm. Indra just playing a little bit of basically aim training there. Going to the Kovacs. They've been warmed up. Arnie Bjarni gets sent back, and the Flock are looking real strong.
Yeah, Indra with a nice 2 picks there, and even more coming out. 1 up onto Fairy, so that's 3. But yeah, the Flock are looking really good, and as you said, they are looking pretty strong. But the Brig and the... Oh, that is crazy.
Statements being made with a barrage right outside the spawn. They've sent them back, and a very clear message sent. You probably want to ban some dive characters. Yeah. I mean, that was just strength to strength there. The Flock made Kalmarne look like they didn't really know what to do, and that's just because the Flock were playing that so well.
Yeah, and maybe we could say that the Flock are flying this time. It's not a 3-0 sweep. They're starting fresh. It's a new map matchup. And yeah, I'm kind of favoring the side of the Flock by looking at what we just saw. It was a very nice clean 100%. They really pushed that aggro positioning on towards Kalmarne, and as we got to see, Gio, they really struggled if you are up on the side of Kalmarne when that pressure got pushed into.
Well, they're certainly going to feel a certain bit of pressure here with both the Pharah and the Mauga, 2 high-pressure characters that are going to force you to think twice about where you're going. Not much verticality here, so Fairy can basically just stay up here and plinker into them with the primary fire, build up the railgun charge to eventually try and take Havoc's out of the sky. See Havoc's taking some damage, needs to back up, gets taken out by Haggis. Actually, the Kunai finding the Pharah, clipping the wings there. Micro missiles do find Pele, but Pele is having fun in the backline, just striking into the back of them with that sound blaster. I forget his name, I'm sorry. Dive into the backline, and basically the Flock have just meant that like they're trying to like control this cage, but it's not working out. They don't really have the point. They're kind of stuck.
Yeah, Arnie up on the Winston here is actually a nice little play so far, and as we get to see, it's pushing back the Flock, and if you're Swines here up in this corridor, you gotta be a little careful. You are taking this damage, but you do have Kalmarne that are taking looks at you, but if you're Kai, you gotta back up.
Yeah, and that's what Kai does, just creates that space. Kitsuneo's right into them, but you do have to be careful because Swines is still going to give a lot of pressure. Yeah, Arnie Bernardi playing this so well. Winston, essentially you're playing a cheese block into a grater, but still Arnie Bernardi finding wonders with it.
Yeah, fantastic stuff here from the side of Kalmarne, and they do have these ultimates now. Primal up in the ultimate, but you as well have Fairy's ult that is also coming up, and Pele's. So 3 are going to be up online here very shortly for the side of Cal. But if you are the Flock, you got both of these supports, and Kai is going to go a little aggressive with this. This should be pretty interesting by far.
Yeah, Kai opens it up. Arnie Benarni gone means you don't have that space creation, and already you just see the space and the lanes taken away from them as they storm onto point and still holding on to some strong ultimates there.
Yeah, it's looking really good. I like what they did. They only used one ultimate, which was Kai's, and the Flock are basically ready and set for this next fight, as we get to see 4 ultimates basically up online for them. But Kalmarne, they gotta build up back up into this one, but they're sitting at a nice 76%, so they really don't need to worry too much. But if they really wanted to just get back up into the fight, Gio, all they need to do is pop like 2 or 1 ultimate.
Well, Cage comes up. I didn't really see if it caught anyone there. There's the orbital ray, but with Swines down, Pelly booping Indra to spawn, it's been enough, and the beam did not get the value, and Arnie Benarni has cleaned up, and now last 20% on the point for Kalmarne to equalize.
Yeah, and Arnie Benarni is doing a great job up on this Winston, as we get to see up on the side of Kalmarne. But you do have this Pulse Bomb ready to go if you're the Tracer up on the side of Cal. But if you're looking at the Flock, the only ultimate that they have is this Barrage. Will they place it well? But the Pulse up on the Kai, that's very unfortunate.
Well placed Pulse, turns it around. Indra working their hands clean off the bone, but still struggling. Swines finds Haggist. And there we go, equalizing. Indra just locked in there to get some eliminations to turn it around, and well, it's 99%. They cannot let this switch over again.
Yeah, and here we go. Will the Flock do a 2-0 here up on Ilios? This is their chance to push this one up to 99% to get that 100 against this Kalmarne team. But Kalmarne are coming back with both of their support ultimates, which they could use anytime. And if you are the Flock, Swines is able to find that engage.
Yeah, they were prepared for the Kitsune rush. They back up from it. Indra actually going down to Arnie Bjarni. Now that opens it up. 1 DPS down on both sides. Still could go either way here. Haggis needing to TP out there. Trying to take out the Sombra. Sombra, who isn't going to get ultimate anytime soon. Point switch is over. Overtime is now procced. Now you're looking for the Flock to try and get some picks here, but the weight of Kalmarne's control here is just starting to overwhelm. Arnie Benarni still realizes how important it is for them to just stay alive here, keep themselves up, forcing Kai out, who, to be fair, getting close to that orbital ray. You do want to think about trying to get them out. Pelly goes down, so you have that little less speed there to control that space. Backs up. Pulse Bomb ready from Arnie Bjarni, gets eaten up by Swines, who's doing a wonderful job here of keeping them on the point. And in fact, they might have been able to do it, but Monkey Zangi, here comes the swinging haymakers, uppercuts, sending Dabrix away, and the point equalizes here. Now it's 1-1, final submap of Ilios to take the first point.
Yeah, and the pressure here from Kalmarne and Arnie Benarni has just been pretty phenomenal so far. We now get to see Arnie up on the Winston go about more up into that back line and pressure out those supports, the back up even further, and really can't hit heals up on the main tank or the DPS, which the Flock did struggle against Arnie there, you know, engaging as a Winston player, trying to pick out the ones, but if you're the Flock here, Gio, if I were to say anything about them, you have this Sojourn, which could position off of corners. You could even play these high grounds too. So if you can manage those spaces, you're going to have a nice play field for yourself here to possibly get this map and have your, you know, conceded map points. Hopefully it's 1-0 here.
Well, Fairy looking down the sightlines here. He's going to have to be careful of the dives, but the fact that they're not against the Winston does mean that you will see that D.Va coming, so you've got plenty of time to rotate. Does mean if you're not playing the sightlines of your Widow, you are going to be at a disadvantage. They find that in the way of Swine taking out both the Rocio and the Winston in a very quick take for the Flock.
Yeah, seeing a D.Va player and Swines just, you know, doing what they could do, it's actually pretty impressive. The fight that just happened, Swines was able to get up in there, do a punch 1-2, and able to get those 2 melees going for themselves on the Flock. But yeah, if you're Kalmarne, you're not too bad up in a position so far, but look at this. We get to see 2 Tracers doling up in this.
Yeah, Indra and Arnie Bjarne fighting for it. The health pack, very crucial in that duo there. Gio, another health pack is gotten, no Indra half health. Arnie Bjarne forcing them back, gets the point off of it, and again you see that they're not hard diving here. They're not just throwing their life away for the sake of it. They're just poking and prodding. They're fighting for the space most of all. That was very close to a headshot there. That could have changed things, but Swine's finding Pele again. That Lucio being the first one to go down. Needs to be careful of where they're positioned. Haggisto finding Dabrix very crucial because they were coming up to orbital ray as well. So still back and forth. However, with the tank going down, the Flock will finally take it over.
Yeah, Swines, though, as you said, you know, finding Pele, finding that main support is a huge beneficial factor to these fight wins, and the Flock are doing a great job so far, even with their ultimate economy. They're looking to be around this 3 to 4 ultimate mark and have this 5th coming up very shortly with that Sojourn, but if you're looking at Kalmarne, they got this Widow to play up in the back, and sights are popped, but Pulse Bomb getting up on the Kai, this could just change some things.
Yeah, big pulse bomb means that Dabrix is in a little bit more of a threat. Pops orbital ray just to keep it alive. And of course they can use the damage of that. Indra chasing down the opposing Tracer. Takes Arnie Bjarne down. Kitsune rushes well now from Kalmarne just to try and secure it. Kai taking Haggis down on their way back, but it looks like it's been a failed attempt here by Kalmarne, who has again lost Fairy. Very struggling to find that value. Too many fast-moving characters, and also the Flock have been very good at staying out of the line of sight.
Yeah, and Indra's doing an impressive job here up on this Tracer. You know, every fight we at least get to see Indra up in the kill feed, and Indra's been positioning really well, using the blinks, using the recalls, but now Indra has this pulse bomb over Arnie, and as we get to see Indra taking more focus towards this DPS.
Poor Fairy. It just got sent back to wherever fairies are from these days. Now the rally on point, keeping the team alive, but also big bash. Indra following up with it, a triple for the Tracer. 4 if you include that early Widow pick, and Indra is just in their element.
Yeah, Indra has just been cooking. Like, assign this guy a job and say, you got it. Yeah, I think the Flock have been performing at their best standards. The last time that we got to see him up on stream, Gio, it wasn't what we wanted to get to see. We were hoping that they were able to push a little more further up into that one series, but here at the start of it, Gio, they're looking really, really strong. And if you're the Flock here against this Kalmarne team, now you're questioning Kalmarne. Can they come back up into the series? We do have these hero bans, right, that gets placed. So can Kalmarne focus these hero bans on the Flock, especially after what we just got to see from Indra with that Tracer gameplay? Just really, really phenomenal.
Yeah, I think it's very clear that when they switched to the Mega composition that they started to struggle. Obviously, D.Va is a very strong character for them there. And perhaps now, obviously, they could go back onto the Hazard, since Hazard can no longer be banned for the rest of the series. But however, now, as we think about what maps were next, King's Row was going to be next. That's a bit more brawly, harder to play dive on a lot of that map because of the way that the lanes of that map are set up. So perhaps now we can maybe focus on a bit of a brawl. The Flock seem to struggle on the Mauga. Kalmarne might have that one in the bag, but again, it's close enough that I would say the bans definitely are going to impact the outcome of this match.
Yeah, Brawl and Poke could be seen here. That's always exciting. And having an Ashe or even, you know, that backline range hero could also be significant. But I wouldn't be surprised here, Gio, if we were able to see like an Ana come out, or even possibly more of a Mei coming in. Because I know Ramatra, up in the scene of that composition, it relies with the wall. So there's a lot of variety that could be chosen here, but let's see what Kalmarne could do. They did surprise us with the Hazard right off the start. So are they going to surprise us again with a good pick?
It could be worth noting that with Genji out, it could be something. You're exactly right. Kiriko goes out. Yeah, they go for it. Kiriko gone.
No Suzu.
No Suzu. Yeah. So Yeah, are you thinking Anna? Are we thinking Sombra?
Yeah,
Now so many debuffs are going to be so much more potent.
yeah, probably Anna coming out, or even a BAP could be seen, right? A BAP could position pretty well with Window or Immo. Brig could also be, seen here. We did get to see Kai come out up onto that, but will that be played with a Juno? That's the real big question. But the Flock are going to be banning the Sojourn here, so a little bit different with the DPS hero pool now without that. So you're either going to be playing a Ashe, if I were to say, for like Dynamite, or you could bring back that Genji.
Notice if you time travel to season 1 of Overwatch 2 and show this to someone, they'll just be very happy to see these two banned.
Hey,
Obviously,
yeah.
they're not as powerful as they used to be, but yeah, two strong bans here, and I think Kalmarne are going to have something up their sleeve with this one. Now, Genji is playable as well. Genji I actually
Yeah.
sees down as Arnie Bjarne's favorite hero and most played hero. So perhaps that Genji pick was a little bit targeted to a particular player there, and now their leash is off. So I'm curious to see if we will see Genji. Obviously, Kings Row, not particularly a Genji map, but you never know. The
It
Cyber
could
Ninja
be
could come with
viable.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah, like if we were able to get to see like an Ana up in the back line, charging up heals 24/7, even getting the anti-nades off, getting the bios, that could be huge for like an engage plan, but it also depends upon how these teams want to go with their team composition. So it is the open here up in CGL. Teams like to do certain things, and this is Kings Row. It's always an exciting map to match up any team that comes up onto this one, even especially up in scrims. Like, this is considered scrims row.
Yeah, the classic Scrims Row. The iconic map of Overwatch.
Yeah.
And
Oh, Lucio Mercy. Wait, we're back up on Overwatch 1.
yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. Leave the spawn. I ain't falling for that. Obviously, what was it? Arab Dive. It was like Wrecking Ball, Lucio, Mercy, Echo Tracer. Was that it?
I think it was something familiar to that, if I could recall. But I do remember seeing the Wrecking Ball. So you're, somewhere up in point. Yeah, this is interesting. So the Flock, it seems to be that they're gonna keep the Mercy. No, okay, all right, yep. So right whenever I say that, that's okay though. They're back up onto this. The Flock are looking pretty good, and this is the brawl-like variants that we want to see from this Flock team to be even more aggressive against this Kalmarne team.
Barry already forced out, 12 HP, just gets out. Arnie Bjarne on the Genji. Will there be vengeance to get for banning their favorite character? Now is the time for them to get that vengeance. Has to back up though. A lot of spam damage coming out from this attacking team, especially if Indra gets to set up. Oh, absolutely pummeled. The gloves were off. It was bare knuckle there, and they felt the pain. Arnie Bjarne does get a consolidation pick,
Blank
but
with
that's
two.
quite good.
Yeah, and now if you are the Flock, you're able to you are charging up this capture of this point here up on King's Row. But yeah, if you are Kalmarne, I was quite surprised there that they didn't get that much of that beneficial factor with their composition. But maybe, as you said, this could be the matchup where they could come back with that Genji pick. It just needs to be up on point here, especially whenever you're playing with the Juno. You could go in with a Genji Blade and say speed, boom, 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 get blade picks, and yeah, you're good for Kalmarne. But yeah, the Flock here looking really good. Swine's charging up that Annihil, but as we get to see, they're able to get one.
Yeah, boom, 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 an understatement. Havoc's already fighting a big rampage there. It's going to take Kai out. Going to get that healing, of course, from the procced wounds there. Arnie Bjarne goes down for it, but that was pretty much a lost fight. You'd lost Fairy, so you didn't have that spam, but now they've got a little bit more time to play with as they wait for their tank to come back.
Yeah, and let's see what Kalmarne could do here. Fairy is charging up this Bob, but as well, you also get to see that Juno Orbital Ray coming up. That's pretty clutch up in some scenario team fights, so I'm definitely looking forward to that. But if you look at Kai here up on the Flock, they do have this Rindo ready, and the Flock also have, I would probably just say this next fight, Gio, they're going to have basically everything, so I think the Flock are pretty set.
They've got the full arsenal, but is it enough to brunt the beam? Here it comes, the damage comes out. The first defensive ultimate is going to be that sound barrier. Bob comes out to create that space. Oh, Pele's stuck in no man's land. Gets absolutely drilled by Bob. Havoc's finding Fairy as well, and they didn't use the whole arsenal. Just 2 weapons out of it, and still they push forward here. Kalmarne are much on the back foot.
Yeah, I think Pele is just kicking it into his own net which means Kalmarne needs to kind of come back. They do have this big rally, which Pele is charging up here, 96% almost, but you have Arnie's Blade, which is also coming for this Kalmarne side, and all you gotta do is Haggis needs to just put down a speed ring, and Arnie could go up into that and get a lot of blade kills depending on how this positions, but Indra able to find one up on the Fairy.
Well, it is all over before it's even begun.
Oh, it got cancelled.
Yeah, the Flock are just rolling through here. They've not... We talk about clipping the wings of the Flock. They are tearing each of the 8 legs of Kalmarne off one by one, and they are basically just sat there, lying there, taking it, because they are in desperation mode right now with 4 minutes in the time bank.
Yeah, they're feeding their little ones. If you are the Flock, they have their food source right up in front of them, and they are definitely getting it. But you get to see Swines here with this Annihilation. But Pele, okay, up onto the Lucio.
Yeah, falls up into Lucio there. The Rampage did a lot. It's going to now get the credit for Indra, basically resetting. And that's what you need. If I had a dime or a nickel every time I saw a team defend with this much time against them, I would have quite a few nickels and dimes. But Ultimate's coming up.
Yeah, Ultimates for sure in the Flock. Swines basically could just walk up into this one, as we get to see here, punching their way through as if they are up in a boxing ring, and Swines just putting it through with this Nile so far. Yeah, Pele was really just trying to survive.
The indomitable Pele survived so much of that, but again, all will end like water against cliffs. Time wins all, and all wounds will bleed. There comes the beam to try and get the free touch. No one's there in time with the boob from Dabrix. 3 minutes just about for the Flock, and now Kalmarne are thinking, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of extra time for King's Road.
It is.
The finish line probably seems much farther away now.
I kind of think of this, right? If you're up in a game, and if it's King's Row, right? And if you cap all 3, and if you do have time, you got time. You got time to play. It's not like you don't got, no time, right? 0 seconds is a different story. But Kalmarne are now up in a different position here. They are gonna try and do this with a different phase, and hopefully it goes their way. We just got to see the Flock be pretty dominant, Gio. Swines was able to get a lot with the Annihiles that were happening, but Swines getting more pressure up onto those supports, like how we got to see Pele just trying to survive there. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what Kalmarne could do here, heading up into this one in 20 seconds. I like what they have to provide, but is it what it needs to be for this factor to get a win here on King's Row? That's the real question, because the Flock has been really good, and they are playing this with a mini wall. So if you are Swines here, you're going to be working with slows, and you're also going to be catching people with this May.
Havoc's going to be playing Sims 4, sort of box them into a room with no food or water, see what happens, and that's going to really be an issue for Arnie Benarni, who has been very aggressive on the Junker Queen, and already is very aggressive. The Hyper Ring sends them forward, and is going to put the Flock on the back foot just temporarily. Didn't catch anyone off yet.
All right, and let's see. Both Ashes taking this top angle, and Fairy is able to take the other Ash. But yeah, the pick here coming out up onto Pele once again. It's always like Pele dies.
Yeah, Pele dies. That's the story of the match so far. Yeah, the Pele get kicked back to spawn, and it's rough because, I mean, obviously the Brigida is going to be a target, very slow-moving target, so Pele is going to be, you know, at the brunt of a lot of this damage.
Yeah, Pele is just kicking themselves up on the back so far. But yeah, if you are Kalmarne, you are in a tough position by means. The Flock, though, losing Kai here, this could be just more aggression from this Kalmarne side.
Yeah, the Fairy has taken out both supports of the Flock, which means they're a slow-moving, unhealing block right now, and unless they proc self-healing, then they're not going to get much done. Everything is permanent here. You see Arnie Bjarni pushing forward, understands it, helps take down Havocs with the burst damage. They are going to get Kai back just in time for this next fight, but it's going to be tough now. They need to be pushing into it. They are going to have Blizzard. They are going to have the Nemesis form followed up by Annihilation, so they do have the ability to stay in it, but they also have the time. They don't need to force it too much. Bob's going to be the one to touch, and Indra sends Fairy into the sky, calls for the pool, shoots their head off, the hat goes flying, Swines will clear it up, and all for nothing.
Yeah, Swines, you know, doing what they could do with that Annihil, but as well, Indra throwing in that Bob there from the Flock. So 2 ultimates were used from them, but you also have this window from Kai that's ready to go. Will that be popped? That's really questionable, but Fairy able to get the headshot off the Indra here. If you are Kalmarne, you probably just aggress this, and I like their choice of this orbital.
Orbital Ray is going to be big and keeping them alive, hypothetically. Arnie Benarni gets themselves peeled out of the fight, however. 1 minute to go, they have vested, so they are kind of like in this kind of halfway point. They didn't seem like they knew what they wanted to do. What a strange investment of the rally. You're going to wish and beg you had that for this next fight.
Yeah, and looking at how Pele has been playing, I feel like Pele is just out positioning, and that's where the Flock are, you know, taking these decisive decisions and saying, hey, we could kill Pele here, and they are definitely doing it. And yeah, the Flock here, they don't have an ultimate, but if you're looking at Kalmarne, they do. And if you are Haggis, you can throw in this speed ring to aggress this Arnie Blade that could just be popped any second now. They need to do something, and yes, it's going to be out. Oh.
The blade gets caught by the Fist of Fury, gets frozen up, and the blade gets shattered. Less than 30 seconds, it's panic stations, and there is not an ultimate ready. And they need to throw against the wall and see what sticks here.
Can we just already, like, ring the bell? Ding, ding, ding. Swines is, like, completing the Monarch of that boxing ring so far, you know, throwing out those punches. But yeah, the Flock, they have this Annihilation almost here, ready to go to push this team Kalmarne even much further back, and I wouldn't be surprised if this gets popped. Kalmarne are in a very tough position, as it seems. Ooh.
Yeah, the Swine's tank is just doing so much here. Ramatra just pummeling that backline, 2 squishies taking out the Juno in the end there. The Flock are coming out with an absolute fury right now.
Yeah.
This is a different team to what we saw last time, and I believe last time I kind of talked about how I felt like they had great individual parts, but the overall cohesion didn't feel together. That's different, completely different. Now those individual parts are working together, not like an engine, but like an orchestra. You can hear the music and you can see the art in their plays because it is beautiful. It's coming together. So the team feels so much more cohesive, and you can feel like, oh, this is the Flock I want to see. This is the Flock that will go to the playoffs and maybe be a dark horse contender against teams that have beaten them. So I'm very excited to see the Flock play this well together.
Yeah, and especially after their Ecclesi loss, right? They did get 3-0'd, but here up on standards against Kalmarne, they're doing a fantastic one with a very nice, strong scoreline of a 2-0 here up in the early stages. And they are up on this match point here, Gio. So if they do win this next map, they do take the series, but the Flock really, really strong showing so far. But if you are the Kalmarne, you are struggling up in these positions. You're losing your main support as what I've gotten to see here. It's always like Pele dies, and that is what's costing you whenever you want to have a fighting plan, because whenever you lose your main support, I know this, doing esports, it's rough without it.
Yeah, playing with Crumble, I know what it's like to play for feeding main support. That is a joke, I'm kidding him. But yes, I think it's very clear the Flock have scouted something within the backline of Kalmarne, and Pele is getting the brunt of it. But there's 5 minutes for Kalmarne to figure out what the issues are, to try and get a
Yeah.
reverse sweep here. So we'll be back after this brief break, folks. Don't go too far.
Yo. Cash and the ticket is yours. Cash and the ticket is yours. Yo. Cash and the ticket is yours. Cash and the ticket is yours. Cash and the ticket is yours. Yo.
crazy, Malin. I'm not crazy, Malin. I've just been in a very bad mood for 40 years. 40 years.
Carpe diem. Carpe diem.
And we have the Flock up 2-0. A team that's taken a good core ingredients and baked a cake of disaster for Kalmarne. Kalmarne are being calamaried at the moment. I think it's suffice to say. Kings Row was very one-sided compared to Ilios, kind of counter to what I thought we would see. So now with us going to Runasapi on push, what are we thinking? What does Kalmarne need to do here to try and turn it around? Because the Flock, they're on site at the moment. Like, they are playing really well.
Well, if you are Kalmarne here, seeing what they did up in the last couple of maps, I wouldn't be surprised if we were able to get to see a Winston pick come out here once more. But yeah, this is Runasapi. It does favor different compositions like Brawl or a heavy set dive, or you could also get to see rush comps like JQ could be used. But yeah, if you're against the Flock here, which you have had a struggle, and the Flock has been reading it pretty well, Kalmarne is gonna have to make an interesting ban, especially against this Flock team, because stuff hasn't been going their way. But let's see what Kalmarne does. I hope it goes up in the favor for him, but it's Kalmarne here. They don't want to get fried, and they, especially, as you quoted, don't want to be calamari.
Speaking of their name, random interjection, not too far away from me in Scotland is a town called Kalmarnock, and it's frying my brain. I don't know why I'm struggling to separate it, but I got fish and chips. You maybe will
Nice.
say I got fish and chips from Kalmarnock, so that's the lore of Gio's dinner. Right before I had a shower and got called in a shower to do a CGL cast, but that's the thing. You got to be on your toes when it comes to CGL. You never know what's going to be around the corner.
To rate the fish and chips, what do you rate them out of 5?
Oh, I had them with curry, so like a solid 8 out of 10.
Ooh, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah,
But look at this.
That's fair enough.
Ram was chosen.
You take Ram out of the board, and it means that on Runasapi, where you can really play the Ram, you could have gone away with it. So I understand, because let's be honest, Swine controlled King's Row.
Yeah, Swine was basically saying, hey, face me up in this boxing matchup and I'm gonna punch you out of the ring. Yeah, Swines was just cooking, truly showing what they could do there. But, you know, now the Ramatra's out of the scene, you gotta pick something else now. There could be a pick of Ryan getting chosen here, but as well Wrecking Ball could come out. I know Runasapi is fast-paced, but if you are the Flock here, it's gonna be a ban for you right now. I wouldn't be surprised if they ban a support. Let's see.
Lucio gets the chop. Bye-bye. We don't like
Good ban.
Spotify. Yeah, this is the 2 bans again, which are very much like, hey, we don't want Brawl and we don't want Speed. So now they're forced off of a Lucio and onto more of the Juno. Perhaps they're trying to force Pele onto Brig again, because
like a certain character? Yeah, I could see that.
Because, like, obviously you'd want to
'Cause-
replace, if you want speed, you want Juno, but usually it's the flex support that's going to play the Juno. So maybe you're forcing Pele to play Brig so that you have something to target again, like in Kings Row.
Yeah, so as it seems to be, no substitutions coming out from both of the teams here, but the Flock are running in a great lead so far. They are up in match point, but Gio, if you are Kalmarne, you need to reverse sweep here, and you got a map to do it. Runasapi, this is a fast-paced map, and can these teams match up pretty well? But Kalmarne obviously needs to do the bigger factor here. Let's see what happens. Can they do it? They got the players to do so, but Pele cannot die so quick up in those team fights.
Yeah, there are two types of teams. One type of team that's going to win it, and that's the type of team that feels the corner behind them and fights even harder. They focus in, they lock in, they focus on their skills. The other type of team will lose, and that's the type of team that lets it get to them, that feels it too much, gets too emotional about it. I want to see Kalmarne prove themselves as the latter, as the you know what I mean. I forget which one's the latter. As the one that's going to win, as the team that's going to lock in, focus in, and dig their horns in, as they're going to stampede forward here into Runasapi and, well, try and begin their reverse sweep.
And let's see what both of the teams could do. You know, those horns are pretty spiky there, and hopefully the team that's losing doesn't get spiked by them. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this were to go up in favor of the side of Kalmarne, but they need to build up some sort of momentum builder, because if Pele gets out of that fight, now you're strategizing, do we take this a 4v5 or do we back up? Because the scenarios that I've been seeing so far has been Pele dies, Kalmarne backs up, the Flock pressures it, they get picks. So do Kalmarne stand that battle and try and get the factor picks out of that, or do they keep on doing the same thing here and just hope the best?
Pocketed Sojourn. Let me check the clock, the date, the time, the Overwatch season, and if I'm actually still with Pulse. This is a strange choice. You don't see this often these days. Obviously, you're looking to just like focus on Havoc's getting lots of damage out there. The Mauga composition, we did see them play on Ilios. They played on Whelm and played around the cage, so they know about like controlling certain sectors of the map. Big charge into the back, trying to like take out the Sojourn of Kalmarne. It's actually Arnie Briarni who's going to go down for Kalmarne. Oh my god, these names. And now again, you just have to be so careful, because Mauga, once the haha is ready, once that cardiac overdrive is ready, they're just going to win the tank duel. So Arnie Benarni needs to be careful when they're going in with their team Kalmarne, that they make sure that they're with Arnie Bjarni so that they can follow up and not die.
Though I will say, Arnie Benarni knows what they're doing up on this tank roll, but they need to play it more carefully, because they did just get caught by the Sojourn. But now you have the Flock, they're running with this Pulse Bomb ready to go, and they also have Kai building up this Kitsune Rush, but Arnie able to get what they could do up onto the Sojourn there? Yeah, that's, no Havocs for the Flock.
No Havocs, but Indra has Pulse, and Indra does not stop. Indra is unrelenting, unyielding, and this backline looking to see if they can maybe stick Pele, or even better, if they can take Haggis out here, then of course there's not going to be an orbital raid, but this fight's very important because the forward spawn's right there, that butt scratch, but Kai going down means that the Flock are not going to have that off-angle option with the Kiriko. They still have high healing, and with Pele gone, there's an opportunity, but nah, as soon as Swine's gone, that's it.
Yeah, and as we get to see, now the Flock are kind of getting this push back, and...
Oh, a stagger?
I
Staggering a Baptiste? That's new.
It's like the new aim training method for the BAP, and as it seems to be, the BAP
guys, hello? Hello? You can't let that happen! What is happening? What did I just witness?
I think they were joking around like a little too much there, and now we do get to see the Flock come back. Very, very decisive choice from this Kalmarne team. They had they had something going. Why didn't they just kill the Bob?
I'm suing Kalmarne for emotional distress. The fact that I had to bear witness to what just happened. You can't let Pele die there. And it gets the butt scratch. It changes the complexity of the entire map. Oh, lordy lord.
Let's see what happens here, Gio. Both teams have these ultimates, and the ultimate economy is going to be very strong, but Indra able to get the pick up on the August here. It's going to be interesting now without that, but Kitsune Rush is able to go when they are applying this pressure, but Pele up in the kill feed now, taking it up on the Kai.
And, well, Kai is going to go down, but the rest of the ultimates are ready there. I mean, they're just primed. Like, I've seen Runasapi come back. Oh my lord, how's that happening?
Yeah.
Oh god, they're just falling apart piece by piece. Indra's like a screwdriver, and they're just a bunch of screws getting, well, unscrewed.
Yeah, I think Indra has been pretty, good so far up in the series, and as we get to see taking this corridor, it's going in the favor now for Kalmarne. But is it? Can they fix their fixture here? We did get to see Kalmarne kind of struggle where they were staggering, and I'm hoping that they don't do this again here, because we did get to see the Pele fall down, and stuff wasn't going up in favor. But yeah, Gio, let's see what happens. Both teams have ultimates. I wouldn't be surprised if we get to see these aggressed, and Indra able to get Fairy.
There is a miscommunication between the front line and back line. You need to be getting your packs at that point if you're going to be dueling a Tracer. Havix is on 13 HP, is not getting looked at by a single human being on the server, and is raining havoc on Kalmarne, who they still have 5 minutes. Right, Nyah? There's still a chance. They're not out with it, but they need to get together. They need to stop making so many mistakes.
Yeah, and let's see what Kalmarne could do here. Fairy does have the stick! Indra able to get Fairy, so no Sojourn ultimate just so yet for Kalmarne. They're putting themselves up in a little struggle, a little corner, which they don't want to be up in, but you do have Arnie Benarni's ultimate coming back, which that JQ ult, if they do get the purples here, Gio, that could be nice.
Indra going down does mean a lot of pressure's gone on that off angle. They can focus on that main lane. They have to watch the Arnie Bjarni does go down, but Kai does find them on that angle. They were a little bit isolated, and that's what I mean. There's some isolation here happening with the players where they're not quite coordinating with their Brigitte to get the packs.
Yeah, and I will say Arnie Bjarni has been doing a nice job, but you're looking at the back line of what Kalmarne has been doing so far up in this Runasapi. It's either the Juno gets picked or Pele dies. And if you are Arnie Bjarni, maybe you could go in with Haggis Speed Ring with this blade. It probably wouldn't be bad. And as we get to see, it is up in the kill feed, but the Malga is forcing some sort of pressure up onto that Genj.
Indra goes down, Arnie Bjarni earning themselves, even without the blade, a beautiful triple spread is going to get them forwards here, probably deny some forward spawns if they're fast enough with it, and now this is where the momentum can start to roll, right? They've got the ultimates for it.
Oh, and they do get the force of a swap here. Swine's now up onto this Rhine, like how I kind of talked about heading up into this Runasapi matchup. Can they look for now possibly shatters around these corners? It's going to be interesting, but Indra and Kai are going to be the ones for the flock that have these ultimates up in their economy so far, but Fairy able to get Indra here, but Kai able to get Pele. So without Pele, you don't have the rally to engage, but Fairy is just trying to do something for this Kalmarne team.
The flock, like mentioned, are going to have the Kitsune Rush opening with it. They can back up. Pele's got the rally if they need it, but of course hiding, like waiting for their prey. Arnie Bjarni with this blade needs to get it off here, but Indra is just there, following them, forcing them, pressuring them. Arnie Bjarni needs to get the packs before it comes out. Here's the rally, and here is the blade. Finds one, Havix is enough. Fairy gets traded though, so it is back and forth. The Reinhardt getting forced back from Swines, but Indra finding Haggis in the back is devastating because that's your core healing as well as Orbital's Ray. Now you won't have that moving forward.
Yeah.
And if Arnie Benarni going down, that's that push at an end.
Also, I was hoping that Arnie Benarni can do something there, but you look at what the Genji also involved. It didn't get much value with the blade, and it was an interesting combination of even Pele's rally. Stuff didn't go in, the range of what Kalmarne wanted to, and now the Flock are in a better position over this because they're gonna have these ultimates that are basically gonna happen any second now. You got 2 up in this ult economy, and if you're the Yari on the side of the Flock, you're able to get... Oh, Havoc, so? Okay. Go crazy.
Okay, yeah, Havoc's getting the 2-tap there. Big axe into the Rhine. Of course, the forward spawn is still active, and Indra finding Haggis again means that healing's gone, and it's just another flash of potential before the Flock just lock in, and the fact that they've actually swapped their heroes around a little bit here is making it more difficult for Kalmarne to adapt.
Yeah, and let's see what they could do. The stick up on the Pele, that was kind of read by us there as casters, but Swines able to push this one back, able to get the pin, and yeah, Gio, if you are Kalmarne, it's going not so in your favor.
Yes, the saying is your goose is cooked, but here your squid's cooked. It's calamaried, but the Flock, they are the winners here. They have proven themselves that they are a team in the top half, that they are right now number 4 in the standings with a 3-0 victory. That's going to really help them.
Nice.
I'm not sure how the standings are going to work out, but that could even put them into top 3 in their section of the scoreboard, which is brilliant because we are starting to head towards the mid-season. I'll be honest, my old decaying brain has forgotten when it is, but it's coming up, it's there, it's almost there, we're getting there, and that mid-season is a chance to not only get like the ego win of the mid-season victory, but also if you win mid-season, you get extra point bonuses to your score to help you in the eventual actual playoffs, where in this tier you play for money. Like, money is on the line. There's more than pocket change available in this tier, so it's all about setting yourself up for success, and if you can win the mid-season, you give yourself an easier second half of the season. So that's what the teams need to be aiming for, especially since this is the last week in CGL without perks. Do your homework, get your flashcards, get ready for the perks, because they are coming right around the corner.
Yeah, and we got to get ready for that too, Gio. That's always exciting. I know what I did yesterday as a Lucio player, hitting tanks off the map, bridges, Eichenwald was crazy. I shut down a Ramatra like 3 times when the Ram, popped a Nile 3 just up on that bridge. But yeah, it's crazy what the perks could do. It really ups the level of the game, so that should definitely be exciting for next week. But the Flock here with a very strong, decisive 3-0 victory. They were making a very strong statement from the last time, as what we did get to see. They did take the fallen loss of that 3-0 against the Khaleesi, and here they are 3-0ing a team, which is Kalmarne. And yeah, I gotta say, can we get this served with some marinara? I would love to get to, have that nice fried squid. But yeah, it's unfortunate that Pele did die there up into those forward fights. I feel like that's what led them to those mistakes, and you can fix that. You got this VOD here, but you also have these codes that you can look over with your coach. But can they fix it for their next week? That's the real question, because it's not going to be good looks if they keep on making that mistake with the main support.
We are going to break now before we get an interview from one of our players, and we'll dive deep into the psyche of what it takes to get a victory as strong as this one. So we'll be right back with chat with one of our winners. And welcome back to the stream. And just as promised, it's not just myself and Nyah. We are joined by one of our victorious players, Sky Demon, aka Havix, in that game. First of all, congrats on the victory.
Thank you very much, Gio.
And we also got to see the Flock last week. It was a bit of a different story. You got beaten by Ecclesief like 0-3. What's the difference you would say between the Flock we saw this week that 3-0'd a team and the Flock we saw last week that got 3-0'd?
I would mainly say it was roster differences. We kind of had to fill in somebody who we weren't really familiar with playing with. That's the only real difference. Like, it was like we were being put in a new environment and we weren't really used to it. So it was, and it was also the first time we were against Hazard, like a decent Hazard. But yeah, it's mainly just like the roster swap, which we weren't like familiar with.
Yeah, that's fair, because you have like 9 players listed on your roster, so are most of those then like kind of substitutions that kind of come in, or are any of those like people you swap in regularly?
A lot of them are, like a good amount of them is just to cover every possible thing. You know, you need a tracer, you need a hit scan, you need a flyer, you need someone that plays speed, flex DPS, flex support, main support. Like, and there's not one person that plays every tank. Most tank players play like a select few, and then you'll need another one to fill the gaps.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, that was pretty good from you today, Havix. Obviously, great job up on your win. And one thing that I kind of want to talk to you about is I know next week is going to be hectic with all the teams, right? A new scene is going to be variety with basically any of the esports that do Overwatch. But how do you feel about these hero perks coming in? I know it's been perked up, obviously, by Aaron, our lovely director. But yeah, let's see what your opinion is up on hero perks, especially with the heroes that you play.
I'm very excited about the perks. I think it's a fun way to shake up the game, especially since the game wasn't getting much attention. My only concern is that like I don't know if you guys have played Apex, but in old Apex, when you had a gold backpack, you had double healing, but nobody in the
Yeah.
game would know you had that ability. So I'm scared there might be
Oh.
in the game where like you don't know if the other person has that ability, or like you're just unaware. But I guess that might just go away with time.
Yeah, at first, you know, you need to be reading the perks. I know most of the time I'm like leaving the fight to go read my perk, then choose my perk, and come back in. So like, there is gonna be thing, and you can like use the scoreboard and then interact to read the perk. But again, you need to find the time to read in Overwatch, which it's a fast-moving game. It'll definitely come with time. So with the perks coming in and the fact that you have like these players kind of swap in and out. How are you feeling about the prospect of the mid-season playoffs here in CGL for Season 15? Because a lot of change is coming next week with all the perks, but you've got a lot of variability with your roster.
All I can say is that I'm excited. You know, I'm not gonna be big-headed and say I'm gonna destroy every team, but I can just say that I'm excited. I'm looking forward to play.
That's good. That's the mentality you need to have. I love it.
Nice. And you know, I guess to close this one off, from me at least, Havix, what do you think your team, the Flock, are gonna do here to just practice up for next week? I know that it's gonna be big changes. Meta's probably gonna shift, but what do you think you guys are gonna do to have your heads high and get another win like this next week?
Probably try fill in any holes we might have, like against Hazard or compositions we might not be used to, especially with the introduction of perks. It might shake up the meta like quite drastically. Just trying to patch anything that we think that like might be a concern is probably the best way to go about it.
Sounds good.
I've just found something else to ask because I can't believe I forgot it happened, or maybe I tried to forget. They tried to stagger Kai, or was it Dabrix at some point?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Dabrix.
What were the comms at that point?
No, as soon as that
happened.
As soon as that happened, Dabrix was like, "Oh, they're staggering me." But like after we killed them all, I was like, "They weren't staggering you. You were holding them." Like,
Actually, aura. That's what that is. Pure aura. All right, and to wrap it up, do you have any shout-outs or people you want to like point out as being helpful to you to the stream?
yeah, I just want to shout out to my team. Like I'm really proud of all my team, and I love them all for coming out to play. I love all my friends. And just a shout out to you guys, the casters. Thank you for having us on.
Appreciate you. And again, the PayPal money will come through in a moment for that comment. Yes, this is the Flock that I wanted to see, and I got to see you. What feels like when you're like in the zone. This is like the Flock when it's working together perfectly, and I want to see more from it going into the mid-season as well. So congratulations and thank you for joining us for the interview.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Take care.
Take care. Alright, Nyah, it seems that we are cursed to forever cast 0-3 matches, but that is going to happen, you know, across the tiers at the start. Teams are just going to have one team that's going to better understanding than the others. So it's closer to the mid-season when you might get a bit more closer, but yeah, these teams, we've now seen the Flock in 2 matches kind of gone the whole story of their team, and that's what these leagues are all about. That's what CGL is all about, like getting to know who the Flock is. It sounds like they have fun, they're excited, they can interchange some players, like they've got kind of like a kind of easygoing vibe about them. So now I'm really excited to see how they succeed into the mid-season.
Yeah, and you know, today we could say, Gio, the wings weren't clipped. They were flying.
Yeah,
they were
soaring
doing what
high.
they could do, and yeah, the Flock were just doing what they did, and yeah, a strong 3-0, decisive victory. But yeah, if you're Kalmarne though, you do got, you know, the practice, right? So no worries to you. You got more weeks, but it is week 3. We're getting close to the mid-season, like how you said, and it's gonna be interesting to see what these teams could do.
Well, we will get to see all of it. We'll be here tomorrow for another EU game. Later tonight, however, there will be the NA game. It'll be Celestial Knights up against Fellowship Esports. Will the Eagles be there to fly Fellowship to the win, or will the Celestial Knights form a phalanx and hold strong? Check that out later today. If you're UK time, then that's going to be late for you, but you play Overwatch, so the chance of you being degenerate and being up at that hour anyway is probably fairly high, so check it out anyway. That'll be us from the production. Thank you to Person and Orange, and Happy was floating around here somewhere for production, and of course Nyah
Yeah.
for joining me on the cast. My name's been Gio, and folks, don't forget to laugh loud and love yourself. See you around.